through that quickly. But once again, that's a live site. There's the price. Just again, it's a live site. And you can come back and visit that after the webinar. The third demonstration I wanted to show you was how this is being used for incident management and recording incidents. And so we can, if you look on the left-hand side there, you can see that we can actually search by a number of mechanisms. And once again, they're all Loca Explore searching options. In this case here, I'm actually going to create an intersection incident. And so I don't know the intersection or the nearest one, but I'm just going to record it against an intersection. And so I'll just set that up and say, right, it's an intersection, but I need to start with a search. So let's start with my search. Here we are, we're going to try a little different address, 890 Station Street. And using GT Loca Explore, it's actually going to do that real-time validation on the fly and do the geocoding and give me a result. You can see the completed address there right now. I click in, takes me to that location. Now what I need to do there is to assign it to an intersection, and it's an intersection obviously of two streets. And so I go to validate, it says, okay, what two streets? So I'm going to assign it to Station Street. It then goes and validates that, and then it says, okay, here's the rest of the information about what you've just told me. So it's at an intersection. The nearest street that it's going to intersect with is Dane Street, which is about 23 metres up the road from the front of where you were. And so this is doing a number of spatial lookups in order to make that determination, but it's also looking up other layers or other directories of data as well. And you can see with the Melway grid and the VicRoads grid, it's actually going and looking that up using GT Loca Explore. So once again, another example of how that back-end service. And in this case, we've used GT Loca View for visualization as well. The last one I wanted to show you is exciting to me because it doesn't have a map. And so I really wanted to explain that a lot of people are using our service, or this GT Loca Explore service, to be able to search based upon certain data entry. So we can go and type in an address to generate a property certificate or a lot and plan number or a council property number. But what I need to get out of that is a lot more information. I need to get the proposed zones. I need to get the LGAs and other map references, flood zones, which are very important, as well as a validation of the data as well. And lastly, I might just want a little bit of a map, a little map snap, a static image if you like. And so I'm not going to use a map to drive the query. I'm actually going to use an application which may not have a map anywhere near it. And so what that would typically look like is the address comes in through some application. It could be a web form or something like that. And then the GT Loca Explore will take that request. It will determine the result and do all the lookups that it needs to and give an XML response, which can be then consumed by the machine. The machine can then go and format that, or the application can go and format that any way it likes. And embedded within that could be a reference to a static map image as well. And so some of the products that might come out of that might be just printed forms where there's no map required at all, and maybe they do want to add a map as an afterthought just to validate the other data as well. So a really solid example of where industry is using GT Loca Explore to be able to just ask the question and to then generate a product without having to massage a map. So look, that's really where I wanted to cover off with the 5 demonstrations. And so if I could leave you with a few thoughts on what GT Loca Explore is and where it can be of greatest value to the business, I'd say that Loca Explore is the service that provides a simple address-based request and ensures that the data is valid and it can be shown on a map. And also to be the starting point for multiple searches across the business. And we know that an incorrect address can cost you a lot of money if you don't get it right. So, and a map can provide that level of interface into the business and provide better service. So I'll look, with that, I would like to just leave you with that information. We certainly are able to be contacted, and I'll pass it back to you, Clint.
Fantastic. That's a great presentation, Ross. I'm sure the audience will agree. Just during that presentation as well, I've been encouraging all attendees to enter their questions in using the GoToWebinar question pane. I'll just mention that again in case anyone from the audience has a question, and in doing so, maybe we can address those that have come through thus far, Ross. So the first question that I have here is what sort of implementation time are we talking about to put in place GT Loca Explore?
Look, it can really vary. Like you saw before where we had that address and someone just said, look, I want to pass in an address and get an XML response back and leave it to me to then massage it and build an application around it. I mean, that's a phone call. That can be anything from half an hour to get that up and running, just once the XML is explained. When it comes to a mapping interface, we've put these things together in a couple of days, quickly after certain events like bushfires, for example, where there was a real need to integrate address searching and visualization very, very quickly. So, and the more complex ones that you saw, like with the parks ones, there's several weeks around that as well, but a lot of that has a very tight process around the delivery. And so we do have a number of case studies on our website of where we've actually used GT Loca Explore in the time frame.
Fantastic. Okay, there's a few more questions. So secondly here I've got, are all the sites hosted by the customers themselves, or are they hosted by Geomatic Technologies?
Look, it's a mix. I mean, there's three ways, I guess. One is where the customer hosts all of the bits and pieces themselves, or GT hosts. They're the two extremes. But we're actually finding that some solutions the customer wants to host only certain parts of it. Like where you saw with the Parks Victoria one, the mapping part of it and the visualization is tightly integrated with the CMS. So that's hosted where the CMS is, and it's calling the GT Loca Explore service remotely, which is held at GT. So that's an example of where we can actually mix and match. And look, I'd say most customers prefer us to host the whole lot, primarily because we can actually get it deployed probably faster than they can themselves.